Good evening, good evening. Thank you. Good evening, thank you. Welcome to the Newport Board of Education special meeting. May I have a roll call, please? Here. 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 All right, if you all would join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now we'll have a moment of reflection. Righty. First on our agenda, Mr. Watts.
Okay, tonight we have partners from NWEA, and with us we have Brenda, Tiffany, Rob, and Elaine. So they're coming tonight to just give us a quick update on things that we worked on so far this year, how they work with principals in the schools, and things we put in place, and then talk about our next steps and where we're going to go next year. And of course, the various questions that you all have for the team. So then, who's Rob? Are you up there?
Yeah,
Rob? And I'm going to be presenting tonight.
thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen of the board. Thank you, Mr. Watts. I'm looking for Mr. Grayson. Last time I saw him, he was at bus duty this afternoon, so I don't know. I hope he's okay.
Yeah,
You know, that
yeah.
can happen.
Yes.
Just want to go over a little bit and do a quick review of what we've been doing this year, what some of our goals are. I see some of you already have a handout right there. That's wonderful. The first thing I'd like to do is just introduce ourselves. My name is Dr. Rob Thornell. I have been working at the high school this year. Before that, my career was I was a deputy superintendent in a district, pretty large suburban district in Dallas-Fort Worth area. Was a secondary principal and an elementary principal. So I've been doing this stuff for a while, and I'm really enjoying my time working at the high school. And what's that?
You all, and thank you for inviting us tonight. I'm working with your Newport primary campus and the intermediate campus. Prior to the work here, I was a principal for 13 years in DC Public Schools and Chicago Public Schools. I am a native of Atlanta. So I started my career in Atlanta, Georgia, attended Spelman College, and then Harvard Graduate School of Education to support my leadership journey. So I'm happy to be here and happy to have had the opportunity to coach your school.
So just want to kind of remind you, some of these things, maybe things you're aware of and have seen. Please interrupt us at any time and ask questions as we go through, as we address you. But I wanted to remind you first and foremost why we're here. And we're here a lot because we want to partner with all kids in Oklahoma. Right? And I think that's what we have found that your schools and your school district wants to do. But in NWA, we talk about pursuing their passions to shape their futures and realize their potential. And really whatever that means for your kids and your students, differentiated learning, personalized learning, what we're trying to do about meet the needs of all kids. That is our mission.
So what we're going to do this afternoon, we want to talk a little bit about who we are. We just did our introduction. But more importantly, what we do, what we've been doing over the course of this school year. And we're going to talk about the impact that we're having and some of the progress that is being made across the Newport School District. So just to start us out, our purpose, our theory of action, as both school leadership coaches, our goal is to really build the capacity of the leadership in every school. We know that leaders are powerful, and they are that one key source that can change the outcome of teachers and their students. So every day, Robin, I partner to make sure that we are building the capacity of your leadership teams in schools, but we do that through the use of the 5 essentials. So we'll talk a little bit about what that is, but this is like bang for buck on how to improve schools. All in terms of getting results for your students. changing leadership practice, and of course, supporting the outcomes that you want for your students. So just almost a year ago, we partnered with Newport with the goal of doing these things here. And these are basically our services that we have provided so far this school year. In the spring, in the fall, we conducted a needs assessment. We'll talk a little bit about that and the outcomes there. Most of our time has been spent on the ground in school buildings with your principals, your leadership coaches, and your teachers. And then you all recently took the 5 essential survey, which will yield some data around our growth, our progress, and the next steps. And then we shared time with your systems, district leaders, just to support their growth and also their development over the school year.
All right. So we're going to talk a little bit about those needs assessments and kind of get into that and go through kind of what the goals have been this year. You may or may not have seen this as we've gone throughout the year, but they started with 2 of the 5 essentials. They start with collaborative teaching and ambitious instruction. And through talking with your district folks during the summertime and getting ready for this school year, these were kind of the 2 areas that we wanted to focus on. And so when we came in and did our needs assessment, our questions really revolved around these 2 items, okay? Collaborative teaching and ambitious instruction, we'll talk a little bit about what those mean. But to keep in mind with that, the 5 essentials that Elena mentioned of school improvement, over 30 years of research by the University of Chicago in all kinds of districts all over the nation have brought the fact that there are 5 main things that bring about school improvement. And you can see them there: effective leaders, collaborative teachers, ambitious instruction, supportive environment, and involved families. And there's a lot of research that says, well, which one's most important? They're all important, right? We gotta do them all. But one of the things that I'd like to bring up here is that research has shown that if a school is strong in at least 3 of the 5, they are 10 times more likely to show substantial gain in student achievement. So when we talk with campuses and you talk with the community, which 3 are we really good at? That's what we want to know, right? Which one are we good? Because we're strong in 3 of them. We've got a strong likelihood of showing some substantial gains. But here's the scary part. If you have a low score in even just 1 of the 5, your likelihood of improvement falls to less than 10%. So while we want to focus on 2 or 3 and be really good for those, we can't let any of them fall by the wayside. We have to be strong in all of them. So that's some of the things that we've been talking about with your schools and with your principals. And as we get those results that came in this week and start talking to them and diving into them even more, we'll look at both those high scores and the low scores and say, what do we got to focus on? What's next? Right? So that's something that I think is real important to keep in mind as we go forward. So as we look at what the essentials were, again, I've already mentioned, based on the needs assessment, based on the data in the district and interviews that we did with teachers and with leaders, we came up with ambitious instruction and collaborative teachers were the 2 things that we really wanted to focus on. And so I'm going to go in depth and talk about the goals that we set for those 2 areas. So the first one is collaborative teachers. And one of the things that happens in collaborative teachers, and you have the handout there that kind of talks about the core measures in each of those. So within collaborative teachers, there's several different things that we could choose to focus on. Collaborative practices, collective responsibility, school commitment, teacher-to-teacher trust, and quality of professional development. Again, based on the interviews we did with your own staff, based on things that we talked about and everything, we settled on a goal around collaborative practices. Some people might call those PLCs. You've probably heard that term quite a bit. But it goes beyond just PLCs. It's talking about how do our teachers work together? How do they review data together? How do they develop instructional strategies to make each other better? And so that was our goal for collaborative teaching. And it came up like this. There it is. There's Mr. Grayson, as well as some others there. All right, this is a summertime meeting that professional learning we did. Mr. Watts let us join in on the leadership training that he was doing this summer. But the system goal was that the school leader will ensure an effective and sustainable system for teacher development by identifying areas of professional growth, creating an aligned system of teacher observations, feedback, monitoring, and assessing evidence that supports the shared focus of improved instruction for all students. Well, that's a mouthful. I almost had to take it right. But that's part of what a principal has to do, right? They got to do all that stuff. It's really, really hard. And so as we've worked with the principals and the school leaders, including the instructional coaches and others, we've talked about these things, you know, and every school is different. So what I'm doing at the high school with the principal may be different than what's going on at the primary or the intermediate, and that's to meet the needs of that campus and that leadership team and those teachers. But the goal is that we get better in those things. So that's what we're trying to do for collaborative teachers. The second one was ambitious instruction. And ambitious instruction goes a long way, but this goes all the way down to teachers know what kids need to learn and do based on the Kentucky standards, based on the level of instruction and everything that goes with that. So again, you have the handout with there's 4 core measures in ambitious instruction, and the highlighted one on the screen is the one we chose to focus on this year, and it's called academic press. And when we talk about academic press, a lot of times people say, well, what does that even mean? In fact, that was one of the first questions I got from the teachers. What does academic press mean? It means teachers expect students to do their best and meet academic demands. All right? And I know through the data that I've looked at in the fall, the mid-year data we had, kids are working hard, and we're not where we want to be in every area, for sure. But one of the things we want to do is make sure that they're getting the level of instruction at the level that they need to push forward and really move themselves and move not just them individually, but the whole school forward. And so to do that, we have to have the academic press. We've got to push it, right? Yes, ma'am.
So how do you identify that for the teacher? Can you give me an example of what you would do to help a teacher realize how to raise the expectations of their student?
Sure, absolutely. So if I would go back to the collaborative teaching, she's going to talk a little bit about this. But if I would go back to even collaborative teaching, no, you're perfect. Would be an observation protocol that we're doing the walkthrough. So, we would go with the instructional leader or with the principal and say, we're going to classroom, we're going to see what this is like. And then we can come back and debrief. Was the level of instruction where it needed to be? Was it at a state level standard or was it below? Things of that nature. We can take that into a PLC with the teachers, and we've been working a lot on the PLCs, but ask them those same questions. Like, why, if we're in algebra class in 8th or 9th grade, are we working on a standard that's probably a 4th or 5th grade level? A natural response from the teachers, that's where the kid is, right? And that's a fair response. So what do we have to do to differentiate that, because they are in an algebra class? We've got to move them up. So again, the example of how to identify it is through some classroom observation, through some student work, through some teacher planning and PLCs. But what to do about it, that becomes even harder, right? Which might be the next question. That's where some of your professional learning may come in. That's where helping them dive into the standards and then create a plan for differentiation of instruction. But that's a difficult thing. It's not difficult just here in Newport. It's difficult all over the nation as we especially post-COVID, but it is a problem. And it's probably one of the, I would say from my experience, one of the things that teachers are telling right now is the hardest thing to do is how do I differentiate personalized learning for kids at all different levels. We've got an achievement gap here. And when I say here, I mean Newport, I mean we have achievement gap everywhere. So I hope that helps a little bit.
Yes.
And I think, like I said, he's going to address it a little bit more impact. But that was the goal, or that was the core measure. Now the goal that we did around that measure was the school leader will ensure an effective and sustainable continuous improvement system that supports the design and delivery of rigorous instructional aligned Kentucky standards. So again, one of the conversations that we've had to have a lot is we've got to teach grade level standards. We've got to teach them where they need to be. We can't, for lack of a better term, feel sorry for them. If they're behind, we got to get them. But also if they're above, we got to keep challenging academic press, right? And so that's what we're trying to do and going through that. Now to talk about the impact and some of the things that we're doing, again, I just said to tell those were the goals for the needs assessment. She gets to tell you the good stuff about what we're really doing.
All the good work is happening. I also need that the goals that are listed here are also very similar to the goals in the CSIP. So in the school improvement plans that your principals have, we work closely with them to collaborate and to come up with those goals so that they're not doing double work, that we're actually aligned in a way that supports the work that you all are also helping to progress on. So the fun stuff, right? How do you begin to dig into the work? This work really started with us back in July with your leadership team, but also with your teachers. So the first thing to create, you have to create a culture of learning, a culture of professional learning, and really to norm how we work together. So we did that back in July, along with some work in October and September, with your principals, your district, as well as all of the teachers in the district. And that was around engaging in a culture of collaborative inquiry. We know that you all have assessment data and that we kind of monitor and track data, but there is also this idea of, yes, we have the data, but now what do we do with it? And oftentimes that's the area that we struggle to close the loop with. We know how to read the reports, we know what the metrics mean, but now how does that impact my teaching and my learning, right? Because that's your bang for buck. So that has been a key focus on our leadership teams and with principals, closing the loop of looking at data and thinking about now how do we create systems where this actually impacts the classroom. So we've done a little bit of work there. And then we've also thought about how the 5 essentials plays a role. You all took the 5 essentials in February, the window closed in March, so you'll have some data there. But we had to build a foundation around what is the 5 essentials, what does it mean, and then how does it impact the work that we do. So every time we come out to schools, we're focused on collaborative teachers, and we're focused on ambitious instruction. The principals would share, they were here, that those things go really hand in hand, right? You can't have collaborative teachers without ambitious instruction. You can't have ambitious instruction without having the teachers who come together to make that work happen. And we utilize PLCs to do that. But one thing that you'll also know here, and as long as we're partnering together to do the 5 essentials work, is it all hinges on trust. You got to be able to accept some feedback from me if I come into your classroom. You have to be able to trust your colleague to work together. So we've done some professional learning on these 3 key areas to help bolster and build the foundation for the work. So let me go here and there.
That's right.
Now, so let's talk a little bit about the first goal, which was around collaborative teachers. This one, we selected, one, because it was aligned to your district's goal. Mr. Watts focused on PBS, PLCs, culturally responsive teaching, and RTI. But across all schools, PLCs was a focus, right? And this also was data that came back to say, all right, this is some low-hanging fruit. All of the schools are generally doing this. They're meeting, but what are they meeting about? How often are they meeting? Who leads the meetings? How, what's the outcome? So Rob and I start with PLCs because it's not different from what the principals are already doing, but we're here to help strengthen that practice. So we've done that by focusing on the practices, naming this is one of the practices that are happening in your building. But the work that we do with your principals is now to say, how do we plan effective PLCs? What is the topic? Yes, we know data is the topic, but PLCs also need to have teaching and learning. So that is something that is happening in buildings in Newport. Data conversations, but tied to the curriculum. Your Wonders curriculum, your math and focus curriculum, and norming that practice for teachers. That leads to ambitious instruction, and this is how they're connected, right? Your teachers come together in their PLCs, they look at data, they think about what the kids got, what they need support with, but we often find that some teachers don't know how to then turn that data to say, how do I change my practice? But that also starts with your principals, with being able to understand that. So we partnered this year to focus on narrowing ambitious instruction down for academic press. Like Rob talked a little bit earlier about, how do we know what academic press is? We've gone into classrooms, we've normed with your principals and instructional coaches to come to a very clear understanding of what academic press is. Then the principals went and did the norming with teachers. So teachers in primary, intermediate, they have been able to norm the trends of what they believe academic press is. And this is part of the foundation of that work. And then of course, data meetings were happening, and now they're happening more consistently. And they're also tied to areas of instruction and how we move the needle on instruction. I'm gonna go back 2 slides, and Rob will pick up on some additional work that he's been doing.
So one of the things I want to just add on to what Alina was just telling you, that collaborative teachers and ambitious instruction really meshes well with professional learning. When you think about inquiry, when they're looking at data, one of the questions is, why is the data the way it is? And that's what we're trying to get them to say, and talk through and do. And you can't do that if you don't trust each other. If one teacher's doing really well and one teacher's not, do they have trust enough to talk about that? And so that can be part of it, and that's what they're doing pretty well. So one other thing we picked up in the spring is been working with the instructional coaches at all 3 schools to talk about what is called an impact cycle. Basically, that's helping them learn how to, not learn how to, they know how to do that, but to honor their craft of working with individual teachers to get better. And so I have walked them through this book study called The Impact Cycle, which Jim Knight is a very well recognized instructional leader in the nation. But what we've done is we've met 4 or 5 times, and we've gone through, and they've actually had homework each time. They've had a kind of a case study. They've been working with an individual teacher that they selected on the campus and going through and practicing these processes. So part of it is the teacher kind of volunteered or voluntold, depending on who it is, I don't know. But they got a teacher, and the teacher allowed them to video their lesson and talk through it. And we've been working with the coaches on how to give that feedback. But it starts before the feedback. They've got to plan, what is it you're looking for? And so kind of going to your question a little bit, they have a planning protocol where they sit with the teacher and say, what is it that you need to work on? What do you think you need to work on? All that their current reality. Okay, because if a teacher is oblivious to what's going on, or they think they're doing one thing, or they think this is the problem, but really this is the problem they can't see. And so that's why having another set of eyes, an instructional coach in there to help them see that. Again, it's not judgmental, it's being curious about my own practice and what's going on. So there's some pictures there and some notes of things that we've done, but one of the things that the last session we did is they really worked on, okay, we have 1 million best practices of teaching. Okay, so you as a coach, what do you believe is the best? And then what do you as a campus believe is the best? And we started practicing, and their homework for next time, I can't wait to see it, is they're going to think about what are the 3 or 4 instructional practices that mean the most to my campus and why. And then I can start saying, okay, do my teachers all need to do this? What do I need to get them to do this? What do my teachers need to know and be able to do that? So I can help them as an instructional coach. So it's been pretty exciting. So, and I got to tell you, that last picture up there, or the very top one, that's one of the things we said in our first meeting. And then I came into the high school about a couple weeks later, and they had written it up on the whiteboard, so I was really excited. But it says, did it matter that we met? And I think that Atlanta and I can both tell you that every time we meet with a coach, that's one of the things we want to say. Did it matter that we met? What's going on? And that's what I'm trying to get the coaches to ask those teachers. Did it matter? So you go to high school and they got that up on the board. I was so proud. Okay. Now we're going to talk about next steps, just some things that we're doing. You guys have been pretty quiet. Jump in at any time.
This is a process, right? School improvement work, although we want everybody to be 100% proficient to make their growth, we know that when students are struggling significantly, it takes time, right? And the same is with leaders and teachers. So we want to honor the growth that happens. We want to honor the progress that is being made. I was telling a few of my principals how proud I was of when we started, when I came in September, and we got into those meetings. And now when I come into their PLCs, the conversations, the teacher leading the work, and their coaches also facilitating. So that takes us to next, some things that are kind of going to be implications for the work moving forward. You all took the 5 Essential Survey, February to March. Here are your participation rates, right? And this is an average. About 88% of your students participated in the survey, giving their voice, sharing their feedback about their schools. 81% across all 3 schools is an average of teachers sharing their voice, and around 18% of parents coming in to share their thoughts. You will get, in the district and principals, next step is that we're going to dig through this data. We're going to dig through the 5 essentials data. So we'll be back here on the 24th. We're going to talk about the data, the root cause analysis, why is the data what it is, and then what does that mean for our work next year? Do we shift? Do we stay the course based off of what the data tells us? And we'll come together in some meetings with Mr. Watts and the team to kind of help map out some of that planning. I want to pause there just for a second because I'm going to call on Derek. Because I had a meeting today with a principal and I wanted her to share kind of how the impact happens. Transformation, if you will, happens and how it's connected to the planning that's happening next year.
So Mr. Watson had worked with us and taken inventory and really outlined his 4 priority areas. And so as part of that work, we began looking at action planning and really having the principals and their administrative teams make sure that they understood what those 4 priorities were, that they were able to communicate not just to themselves, but to their staffs, what their vision or their photo finish would be. 3 years from now, when we come in your building, what's it going to look like? What's it going to sound like? What are we actually going to see? And so we had the principals last year go through and rank those priority areas based on their as-is state. We're going into year 2 of that. So the principals are again reflecting on their action plan from the past year, looking at what barriers have been, and really where is it that they need to move their school next. And what we had noticed was a lot of our principals would go straight to PBIS. They might go straight to RTI. They might even go straight to PLC work. But we had a principal today that was so excited enough to me to share that they were working on that. And Melina was coaching with them and had asked a couple of open questions. And really the light bulb went off for that principal and everything really started to make sense. Not just the action planning that we do, our school improvement plans, and the work that they've been doing with NWEA, but they really saw how all of those different pieces, all those different work pieces actually all aligned, and the work was going simultaneously. And what the principal had said was that they always felt like culturally responsive practices was an add-on to everything. And through the process today, thinking about ambitious instruction, thinking about collaborative teaching practices, culturally responsive teaching is where their focus needs to be, because that's the work that they're doing with NWEA. That's where their data is showing that their focus should be, that it's not an add-on, it is the number 1 piece for them. So that was exciting that they had that aha moment, that they were able to make a connection, and the principal even shared that they would not have come to that conclusion had it not been for that coaching piece. Like and the principal mentioned maybe 2 open questions, and it took them a minute to really process it. And I could tell when I was speaking with them, they were really excited. They were still trying to process what that actually meant. And now they've got some time to think about it. But it was exciting to see it, and definitely they credited, that breakthrough for them with that coaching for them.
And the coaching is about asking questions. We're value add. We're adding on to the assets already here. And so I just posed a question. What should be your highest priority in the classroom? Is teaching, right? Yes, we gotta get PBI. Yes, we gotta all the things, but teaching is gonna move the needle for students. And so this is an example of how that academic press conversation connects with the priorities that you all set forth for your schools. Coming up, the report will look similar to this. Whatever you have will show up here. And Mr. Watts and your team will likely share the data with you so that you can we have to share it with him and make sure that he understands it. But the report will look like this, right? You're gonna know if you're well organized, moderately organized, or not yet organized. And if you're not yet organized, it's okay. It's an indication to us around where we need to start the work and where we should focus. This is a data point around where you're doing well and what's our next level of work. Each school will get their own report. So next year we will look a little different based off of what the data says they need to focus on. Again, we end with this one, right? That 10 times more likely. Yes, we're starting with 2 of the 5 essentials, but you'll see over time that we don't ever stop working on any of them. Although we might start and put our emphasis on 1 or 2, we may add 1 more next year while we keep the systems and the processes and the protocols that we started this year. And this one I think is really impactful. This is a process, right? It shows the growth of a school over many years of starting the work, taking the feedback, and then coming together to get their school on track. And so we just hope that this is evidence, research-based evidence that this can happen for Newport. With our support, we're here partnering with you all, side by side, working in your classrooms and in your school building to get you to the space that you want to be. So I'm going to end there. I did have questions here. Questions like, we'll open it up if there are questions. We'll pause there.
Yes, sir. The 5 central survey participation rates, I noticed that only 81% of teachers responded to that survey, 18% of parents. What's your take on that? What's the significance of that?
So the breakdown, the breakdown was 20%, I believe 20% at the elementary level, 25% intermediate, and 8% at the high school. Okay? There has to be work around engaging families, right? That's a data point. And as we dig into the data, we'll know, based off of the parents' feedback and what the parents did share, what they shared, to give us an indication of the why, the rationale, and also an indication of what to do to support family knowledge, and the culture around engaged families. But that was a breakdown. That's where we got the 18%. Also noting that the teachers are in the building. They're going to be your highest bang for buck on moving the needle for students. So the principal can say, Mr. Watts can say, Ms. Darla, Ms. Rachel, they can say, hey, we need teachers to take this assessment. We provided times and PLCs for them to do that. Provided times, so the teachers, you got the teacher feedback, but it's oftentimes a struggle and not, I think it's a struggle for a lot of schools to get the level of parent feedback that you want. So it's an area that we can continue to grow.
But we still had only 81% of the teachers respond to the survey, so we still had almost 20% who didn't do it.
And that's average. So some schools had more than that 81%.
Okay.
Some schools had, I think one school might have had 74, one school might have had 94. So that's on average. So the percentages differ, but that was just an average.
So what you see in your work at other schools, is that normal? I mean,
That's pretty good participation.
Really good for first year.
That's great.
Voluntary for one. I think one of the things is we sit down with the principals and do the data, we'll kind of talk to, why is that? Why do you think that number is where it is? Honestly, the parent side, numbers on all surveys go down, are lower by the time you get to the high school. It doesn't matter what it is. I did hear some response about survey fatigue right now this time of year, and there may be some more. But I had the same question you did. 81% of the staff, where are the other 19%? That's something we'll work with the principals on to see. Maybe they have some explanation as to why or whatnot. But it's not out of the realm. It really isn't, because it is a voluntary survey, and it kind of depends on how much emphasis was put on that time, and then just everything that goes with it. And there's a lot of people out this time of year too. They took it in the window of February.
So the survey that was conducted for the parent, is it one survey per child per family, or if you have 4 kids in school, the parents have to have 4 surveys? One, okay.
One per school.
One per child. Okay, per school, okay. One per child. Okay.
Also note that the student survey was for grades 4 through 12.
And how was the survey sent to the parents? How was it through email or through?
There were lots of different communication methods. We talked to the principals around how to get the message out. So via email.
Was a link, but
Yeah, a link. I met with teachers. The teachers also help principals and I met with teachers, they also helped push it out, and I think it was also sent, from Central.
Oh, yeah, I know there was a one call, but, okay.
They also they created a QR code and handed them out when parents showed up, children all in the morning, and when they picked them up in the afternoon. Because there were several times where we had to make additional copies, just to get enough for each person in the drop off.
Okay.
Are all the teachers participating in this? And you said you gave them time during PLC?
Well, well, when you look at corporate surveys, most corporate companies have a benchmark, and if they get 75% of their employees to respond to the survey, it's a good day.
Yeah.
So we do a lot of, Great American does surveys every year, and they push every year, and I promise you, they get 40%, and they said, and so they set goals, and then there's rewards if there's over 70, if there's 80% participation. So you don't always get 100% because I'm working. So you want me to take time out of my work day or do this on my own time. So you have to look at the teachers are teaching, and then when they go home, they're planning. Their day doesn't end at 3 o'clock. They plan for the next day. So I realize it's important to you, but so is cooking food for my kids and getting my family ready for the next day. So, so I take, and I have to, okay.
I think it's well within appropriate to say that's in line with other districts.
Yes.
Well, year one, University of Chicago statistics are year one, you're looking at 50, 60%. So I was thrilled when I saw it. Now, if it drops next year,
Yes, yeah.
because you've already set the bar for communication.
Yeah.
More work with the parents.
This chart, the version of it that's on slide 9, is that where our district is, or is that just a generic?
It's generic, this is a sample.
Is it kind of,
You're seeing this week, it's coming.
okay,
But you'll just get to see year one. But this is a district
Mhm.
that did the work, rolled up their sleeves, and was intentionally focused. And this is why this is one of 6,000 schools.
great.
So when did we start this program with you guys?
Oh, we already started. You said, when did you
Yes.
start? We started in July.
With this fall, right?
No, that's not us.
You guys say, come in with like the baggage.
Sample. It's a sample of the vision that we want.
And that plan that Brenda and I presented about a year ago, it was a 3-year.
Yes, it
That
was.
was our starting place, right? We said we're gonna start with a 3-year plan.
This is 10 years, and this superintendent is phenomenal, but this is what he's been doing. It is intentional. And year one is just your baseline. You're just finding out now, what is it that we need to do?
Anything else?
I thank you for the presentation and the how to and what you're doing.
Say publicly, I wish you could see your next line and say this too, that the work's going on with Mr. Grayson at the high school in his first year there, and the teachers there, they love kids. And it's been great to work with them and see that, and I'm sure she did the same thing. I wish he was here today publicly, I'll tell him tomorrow.
I did have one question. How often are you all meeting with the teachers and the administrators and the staff? How often are you?
Our cadence is try to be there every other week, twice a month.
Okay.
There are months when that doesn't happen, when there's spring break or weather or different things, but yeah, it's, the plan is every 2 weeks.
And so, and you document each visit, what was done, the outcome, the conversation, and all that is kept as part of the data and the work that you do.
We do, except I do have to share with you that I have a composition notebook where I keep my notes and my dog didn't eat mine.
Yeah.
Start over, that's true, I'll show you in a couple pages. No, we keep anecdotal notes like that, and
Okay.
also to this, and she and I may do those different ways, but yes, we keep the topics of what we're talking about.
Well, excellent presentation. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Ella.
Great. Okay. All righty. Mr. Watt?
Ready?
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, next up, I'm gonna give you a, quick overview of the diagnostic review report. You all have the full report in your, documents, so we're not gonna go over the whole thing, so I'm gonna pick out, highlights and talk about, reasons for the audit, just to remind everybody where it is and why we had the audit, what the team found, and things that we need to work on. So, a reminder, whenever a school goes into CSI, then we get an audit from KDE. The purpose of the audit is to come in and look at the school and the district to determine if the principal has the capacity to turn the school around. They also look at if the district has the capacity. So once a school gets an audit, goes into CSI, and the district is part of the audit also. So the team came in, I think it was end of January, and they interviewed you all, interviewed district and admin staff, teachers, students, parents. They also did walkthroughs in the schools, and they looked at the documents that the school presented and also that the district presented, things that we were doing. So after the visit, they leave a number of improvement priorities to have the school and the district move forward. And keep in mind, the audit is based only on the high school. So, even we're farther along at the primary and the intermediate, when they come in and look at a CSI school, they only focus on the high school and only look at that school that's CSI, so they don't even talk or interview the other schools, even though, we've done more at that level. And the data that's in the report is the state testing data from last year. So when you see that data, there's no data in it that they came in and saw this time during the visit. This is all old data, and that's why we went into CSI. So I want to make sure that was clear. So I'll start with the
I have a question
Go ahead.
before I forget. So when they looked at the data from prior years, when they talked in the report about the evidence, they were looking for evidence from that year?
Now,
or
the evidence
now?
is now.
Okay, all right, go ahead.
Was based on that visit, but the
Okay.
data that's in the report is the same data
Okay.
from last year.
All right, thank you.
So when they determined the district and schools capacity, they based that on the following areas. District demonstrates maintenance and communication of a visionary purpose and direction, committed to high expectations for learning, as well as shared values and beliefs about teaching and learning. 2, the district leads and operates on a governance and leadership style that promotes and supports student performance and system effectiveness. 3, the district established a data-driven system for curriculum, instructional design, and delivery, ensuring both teacher effectiveness and student achievement. 4, the district ensures that systems are in place for accurate collection and use of data. 5, the district ensures that systems are in place to allocate human and fiscal resources to support improvement and ensure success for all students. And 6, the district ensures that a comprehensive assessment system which generates a range of data about student learning and system effectiveness and uses the results to guide continuous improvement is implemented. So for capacity, and I'm just reading what the statement says and what they check. They have a couple different options. What they check is in the consensus of the diagnostic review team that the district has the capacity to manage the intervention in each school identified for CSI. So during my meeting with Dr. Kelly Foster, which is the associate commissioner, she said that's something that we should celebrate as a district. Because he's done many audits, and it doesn't always come back as an agreement with the whole team that the district has capacity. So that's, something that we should be proud of. Even though we're not where we need to be, we are doing the things necessary, and they feel that, we're heading in the right direction, and we do have the capacity to help turn the school around. The district has established a vision and mission focused on continuous improvement while ensuring teaching and learning are always at the forefront of their work. And although we have things in place, again, we don't have the evidence yet that shows we have meaningful change. So again, we're just beginning. The high school has a new leadership team. They're our first year. This is really our first full year without COVID. So this is the first year since I've been superintendent that we've had school every day without having to close and deal with COVID. So, we were behind, but we do have things in place to make sure that we're heading in the right direction. They left us 2 improvement priorities, which I say is good because they could have left more than that. And there's nothing that they left us that we didn't know already. So we were already working on these things. We knew, what we needed to do as a district, as a team. So, there weren't any surprises. So the 2 priorities that they left us, one was to develop, implement, and monitor an instructional process that supports individual learner needs. And 2, develop, implement, and monitor a continuous improvement process that establishes expectations for data analysis and uses findings to improve instructional practices. What does that mean? So the first one, they're looking for us to, again, develop, implement, and monitor an instructional process that includes a viable curriculum aligned to the standards and ensures that the use of existing high-quality instructional resources designed to deliver a monitoring process for the routine analysis, formative and summative assessment data to inform instructional adjustments, then preview and monitor lesson plans to ensure lessons are designed and delivered to meet grade level standards with learner-centered practices, and provide feedback on lesson plans before lessons are taught. And that's basically the PLC process. Rob and Lane talked about things that they're working on at the school. This is the work. So that's all it's asking us to do, to make sure that the schools are doing that and the teachers understand that, and that's where that training and the work comes in with the teachers to make sure they understand these things with fidelity. So that second priority, again, ensure clear communication exists between district level leaders and school staff concerning needed support and the PLC process. Then evaluate and modify current continuous improvement processes to build teacher capacity and effectiveness in instruction. And then third, ensure effective implementation and appropriate adjustments to the PLC processes and protocols. So with all of that, and later on in the agenda, we have to select a turnaround team. So that's part of the agenda that we have to do. And we've selected the KDE to be our turnaround partner. There are 3 choices: the University of Virginia Partnership for Leaders in Education, Central Kentucky Education Cooperative, and NKDE. I work with KDE. We have a good partnership. They've been with us at the intermediate and primary, so I felt they would be the best people. They've been doing it a long time, and again, I was part of that team, so I think it's good to just go ahead and partner with them, continue that moving forward. We also have NWA here with us already, working with us. So again, it's nothing different. We won't be changing anything we're already doing because we knew what we needed to work on by them coming in, doing the audit, didn't tell us anything that we didn't know already. So just going to continue that work, continue to move forward. So any questions? Again, you guys, I didn't go over the whole thing, but you all have it there for you, and you can see everything that's in it. So questions?
One of the things I noticed, mentioned that there weren't a lot of lesson plans.
Well, then again, that's something we're working on. We're in the beginning stages. The first thing we wanted to do, we weren't following the curriculum that we paid for with Fidelity. So the first step is to get the teachers to use what we have. So right now, they're just following, for example, page 1 to 300, whatever's in the book. So our next step is to look at the curriculum we have, look at our standards, and now choose which lessons we can deliver based on the standards. So if something doesn't match the course standards, then we don't need to be teaching it. You know, we have to spend the time on the things that we know the kids are gonna be tested on, things that the kids have to learn, and then the other stuff, you know, if we have time, we can teach it, but if not, we have to leave that out. So that's our next step.
There's lesson plan, somebody's got to substitute, they've got at least something to know what to cover and that sort of thing.
Right.
And the one thing I noticed is that they did not find evidence. Quite a few comments was, there was no evidence, as far as what the walkthroughs and the assessment of the teachers.
Right. And we're at the beginning stages.
Okay.
So everything that we've done is now, we're at the implementation stage right now. So
Okay.
again, we don't have evidence that things are working right now, and that will come. And again, that's why we have NWA here partner with us. A lot of the things that, you know, we're just implementing this year, and we won't have that
Evidence.
evidence to show, you know,
until
it's
next year.
working yet, not because it's early. But we do have things in place, so, you know, I was proud of that, you know, it says that we do have things in
Right.
place. Now we just gotta make sure that everybody's following, holding people accountable, and then if we do that, eventually we will get that evidence that shows, you know, kids are learning. We're moving forward.
Yeah, I was glad to hear that what you guys are doing is raising that expectation level, because that's one of the things they comment quite a bit.
Yes.
Exactly. And that's what we've
Yes.
been focusing on, that's been, you know, my message is we
Yeah.
have to expect and let the kids know we believe in them. You know, I think in the past, there's been a mindset where our kids can't. We have to, I get rid of that. We gotta believe our kids can and have that expectation for them that you will. You know, and we can't allow them not to. That's something that's happened in the past, and we, you know, kids that, and I've said this before, kids in the 8th grade, but we're teaching down to the 3rd grade level because we said, well, he can't do that. Well, he has to do that. He has to learn the 8th grade standards. Then we have to provide an intervention for him to catch him up. You know, we take him out in the 8th grade when we're doing it, just give him the 3rd grade stuff. Once he goes to the 9th grade, it's still behind. He might move up to the 4th grade, but we have to close the gap. So we gotta keep that. That's been a focus challenge that I've given to the principal.
And I have to say, you've been giving that speech every year since you've been here.
Oh, yeah, check.
Opening day.
You won't check.
So I've attended some of those opening day sessions and I was sitting like this because he was pretty, yes, so yes, and that's good. And I'm with Tim. I'm glad it's all aligning up because as I continue, you know, we have to create a culture of success. You know, so that has to be in the entire school district, you know, the buses, the cafeteria, the behavior, the academic, you know, and our students need to, that's how they're going to reach for that. If everywhere they go in the district, it's about being successful, then it becomes part of their everyday life, their habits. And when, you know, as they say, if you think it, it becomes an action. So we've got to get them to thinking about they can and will be successful. They deserve it. They're entitled to it. You know, this is what they are entitled to as American citizens. So there's no reason, you know, they can't go to Harvard. You know, they can't go to, you know, some of the best schools. And we don't really, we have to, like I look at Nico Beal. You know, this young lady is a Newport High School graduate, and she is just, the sky's the limit with her. She's trying all kinds of things because she was introduced to a culture of success. And so I'm excited, hoping that we will continue to hear more and more good things from NWA and from the staff on what we're doing to help our students be more connected to the expectations and their potential and what they're capable of doing. Thank you.
And again, it's a whole mindset
Mhm.
change. Yesterday I went over and talked to a group of students during its advisory time. You know, and I asked, you know, I just said to the class, I said, I hear this is one of the best groups in this building. I said, is that? I said, I'm gonna try that again. Is this in the building? I mean, they don't even believe it.
See,
So again, they, until we have to keep preaching that to them. And I said, you guys believe in yourself.
that's right.
You have to be proud about that. It's okay to be good. It's okay to be number one. And I gave an example. I need to lose. If I'm playing marbles, I'm gonna try to be best. And if I play a game and I'm always lose, we can't play the game anymore. I play a video game with my son. If you can't beat me in a game, we can't play that game anymore. If I don't have a chance to win, so we have to instill that in them so they can believe in themselves and have that. And they don't have that right now.
That's right, and
And
we have,
that was one of the best classes, and they still with me.
that's right.
Said, yeah, we're the best.
And that's culture. We have to create that culture for them, We have to change the narrative because the conversation in the community, the conversation with some of the citizens in the community is always talking about, they talk down about Newport.
Mm-hmm.
So it's hard for our students to believe in themselves when their own community doesn't believe in them. So, we have to do a better job of supporting our students and celebrating their successes. Thank you, Mr. Watson. All righty. Any more questions on the audit or comments?
Do they come back and do a follow-up, like a year
Well,
from
in
now?
2 years,
2
they'll be
years.
back in 2 years, we usually get one in a couple of years, and go back and see where we are.
I can't remember.
How we doing?
Yeah, and I have to say, this is a lot better than the last one. Only 2 priorities. That's pretty good. So I'm excited, and I think that in 2 years when they come back, we'll be exactly where we want to be. All right, next on the agenda is the Education Foundation meeting dates. Did I give you those dates, Kim? We need to get some dates on the calendar. I've reached out to the other members, Jack Moreland and Mr. Turner. So I need to give them some dates so they can save them on their calendar.
Third Wednesday of October and January and May. We didn't have a date promised.
Okay, I'm sorry, what date, what month?
October, January, and May.
So those are the same day. The third week of October would technically be a school board meeting, I think. I think we have a school board meeting scheduled.
I thought.
October 18th. You have that on our schedule, Ken?
Yeah, that's a meeting day.
I thought I chose dates that were opposites of our.
I think that.
They got so much out there.
Oh, right.
We didn't choose any dates sooner than that?
Yeah.
Well, we should try to maybe meet in the summer.
I thought I did. I thought I did choose some summer dates. Maybe I didn't. But I thought I chose some dates that were.
We're doing something on May 17th instead of all.
Yes, that was May 17th. I thought that was, yeah. I think I wanted to do Wednesdays. I think I said every third Wednesday. May 17th, and then another one in, was it September?
Me was third Wednesday of October, January, and April.
Right. Because we haven't had one, so I wanted to get one at least on the calendar for now. So those, So if we do one, I didn't want to have too many, that's when I wanted to talk about it, so if we have one in May 17th, and then we can talk about other meeting dates. But my recommendation is that we try to do maybe the third Wednesday every 3 months, or once a quarter, or something like that, 4 times a year. But at least have the first meeting with the entire board. So hopefully Jack and Teet are available on May 17th. No. Okay.
Did you reach out to them?
I wanted to talk to these guys first before I told them we would send them some written communication if May 17th worked for everybody.
Yeah, works for me.
But I think I did tell them tentatively May 17th. We haven't, I was gonna say we stick to the same time because that date works for everyone. Does that work for you better? So let's just put a tentative date for the Newport Board of Education, Newport, what is it, Education Foundation meeting at 6:30 on May 17th. And then I'll reach out to Jack and Teet to see if they can be here. And then we can come together as an entire board and pick some dates, because I also asked him to have the counselors and anybody that's involved in scholarships in the district. We want them at a meeting so we can really look at the processes and procedures that are already in place for scholarships. And if there's anything that, do we need committees? Do we need, ad hoc, councils? What do we need to,
May is probably a pretty busy time for them though.
I'm not talking about them coming to the May 17th.
Oh,
Just down the road. That's my plan. I know May 17th is, the end of the school year. And so I even thought about maybe, I think that's why I picked October, because the school year has started. There'll be, it's a new school year and it's not as busy. So, but as a board, we need to map out our plan and what our goals are as a board. Okay? All righty. Thank you. And then let's see. All righty, the next is financial statements category discussion. I take it here you got some samples.
Those are not samples, those are what I provide to you all each month, so I wanted.
No, I mean, yes, that's what I meant.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, so I've kind of talked to some of you individually about our current financial support and talk about how we get it. We have several funding resources, such as our general fund. We also get money from title. We get title money, and so I've been talking to other boards and, just trying to get an idea about how we can better be informed about our finances and, how much money do we get from Title I, Title II, how much money is in general fund. And when we're looking at these bills, they'll be categorized, at least my vision is, the income in Title I, the expenses in Title I. The income that comes from general fund and then the expenses that go out of general fund. And I think it would just make it easier and simpler for us to follow the budget that we approve. So I've asked Jennifer about it, but I wanted us to talk about it. If you all had any more suggestions, I know you and I have talked about it, and I think you and I have talked about it. And I thought with Tim being a new board member, it would also help him learn about the budget and how the money flows and, where it's coming from and things like that. So if the buckets were a little bit more categorized.
Simpler is better.
Yeah. So go ahead, Jennifer. That was just a backstory.
So what you all have now has all of that, so if I'm understanding you correctly, you're wanting me to create a new separate report that outlines every grant that we have and the money coming in and out in general fund. Understanding.
Yes. So if it's whatever the funding resource, it should be categorized that also the expenses that come out of that category. So if whatever, so your report just has, munis and, it's all coded. But it would be easier for us if it was categorized, general fund, Title I, Title II, Title III, and what expenses, what salary comes out of that, because we have no idea. And so it would just, it'd be more responsible, and I think it'd make us more fiduciary responsible if we were, had a better understanding of how the money is flowing. Does that make sense? Is that a
It does
problem?
make sense. Are you wanting it for every grant?
Well,
Or are you just wanting specific grants?
how many grants do we have? Okay,
What if we were to take it like, tax revenue?
Well, you have that every month. So that's why I'm just trying to understand what you're wanting, because what it sounds to me is what is in the monthly financial report that I provide. So I want to make sure that I understand correctly exactly what you all want. So because it's going to have to be something that I create manually each month by hand. So I just want to make sure I get the correct information.
Okay,
in there
so-
on it.
Can the 30 different grants be categorized broadly so that they come into 5 or 6 different areas versus 30 individual grants?
No, not really, because we may not spend money from each of those every month, it just depends. I mean, do we spend every month from title, idea, et cetera, but we also have lots of other grants like Safe Schools that Mr. May is gonna pay something out of, so that may come into play. So at any given time, we have money coming and going, so,
how about we only deal with grants that are $1 million or more?
okay, that narrows it down.
I think it would be helpful if we did see the list of all the grants and all the money that was coming in, at least on an initial level.
And it doesn't have to be, maybe we do the grants less than $1 million on a quarterly basis, okay? And because she just said that we don't spend money out of all the grants monthly, but
It'd still be helpful to know what they are.
But we still need to know what they are, and we do need to know the impact they have on the district's financial status.
So instead of just having all of, you wanted to.
Okay, let's,
I understand.
okay.
And, it may take a while to develop the report. You might give us something and then we say, oh, this versus that.
Right,
And, since it's something we're just creating, we might not get it right the first time, so don't be aggravated at us.
No, not at all. Thinking about the time it's going to take to create it in the first place.
Yeah.
So it's a 3-hour probably process for me to do all of this. So I just want to make sure that I understand exactly what you're wanting to say.
okay, now,
I can-
you said on this report, we have all that. But
The
it's,
financial report, which one?
I'm looking at the financial report where it says,
So,
general fund,
Mhm.
okay, and then.
So if you scroll down to page 10, you have so this is all of the grants, this is all the revenues that we've received from the grants. And this is through, actually as of today.
But this is the one that says special revenue, right?
Yes, special revenue is all of our grants, state and federal grant funding. So we have 2 funds that house grants. We have our state and federal, which is in Fund 2. We have Fund 22, which is local grants
And-
that we may get. So pages 10 and 11 show all of the revenue that we have received year to date from those state and federal grants. And then on page 12, it shows all the expenses that have come out. So it doesn't break it
Right.
down, and then it'll show you the month to date and the year to date, but it doesn't show how much of that is title.
Right.
So, I mean, I can run this as a detail report, but I think it's like 300 pages, so I would have, there's no way I would have to create a report by hand to get
So
what you.
rather than, so you got it listed as special revenue. So you could not do a,
I can run this report as a detail, so what you're seeing now, even though it's 44 pages, is a totals only report. The detail is like 200 and 250, but it's gonna be very confusing, so I would have to create a separate Excel spreadsheet and pull out all of the information, which I can do.
so special revenue is only 2 pages, and that special revenue identifies the 36 grants,
Yeah.
and there's no simpler way to identify, okay, like, let's see, special revenue, let me get back to that. Okay. So we have revenue from local sources, right? And revenue from state sources and restricted state revenue. So how are we supposed to know what that is?
I'm so.
What is restricted state revenue?
It's state, I mean, it's exactly as it says, it comes directly from the state, so it would be a state grant. So any of our state grants that we have, which would be our ESS funds, gifted and talented.
So there's no other name to, in your system, identify that this restricted state grant is ESSER funds, or this restricted state grant is,
Not for this is all set by PDE and how they require it, so I
okay,
don't have any choice in how that is named right there.
okay.
I have to take this and import it like that.
On an so is it possible to do maybe just a spreadsheet?
Yeah,
Not
I mean,
to-
yeah, absolutely, I just wanna make sure I get the right, so if we're going $1 million and above, I can do that on a monthly basis and. So are you wanting just for that month, are you wanting like a year to date? Or are you wanting like,
Is it possible if we've got local, state, and federal, do each on a quarterly basis, so that we've got one or the other every month? You know, do local 1 month, state the next, federal the month, and then start over for the next quarter.
I mean, I can do whatever you want.
I mean, I get how, that it's gonna be a time suck for you, because that's what exactly I do in my job. I take canned reports and put them in Excel spreadsheets that other people can understand.
Right.
So I totally get you. I know that it's a pain in the butt, but, you know, we need to be able to speak to this, and, you know, just restricted state revenue doesn't tell me anything.
Right.
You know, I didn't know that gifted and talented came out of state funds, you know.
I'll get something together.
Okay.
I'll get a kind of just a mock spreadsheet of maybe ESSER and title for the April board meeting.
Okay.
Is that, are we in April? Yes, we're in April, sorry. For the April board meeting, you can say, yes, this is great, no, this is terrible, start over, and we can go from there. Will that work?
That's fine.
Okay.
Great. All righty, very good. Any other comments or suggestions?
I think it sounds good.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Jennifer. Appreciate it. All righty, the new business. That's why Mr. Maines is at our work session, guys. He needs us. He needs something from us. All righty.
We had, Mr. Ross with us, from Ireland today, so.
Can I say Amber's husband, or do I have to call you by your name?
You call me. I appreciate the opportunity to be in front of you again. It's always good to be here. We opened bids on phase one of the stadium this, bad news is we only had one bid. Good news, and that was surprising. We had two pieces of good news. Number one, it came in slightly under budget. And number two, the contractor that bid on it is, great. If I could handpick a contractor for any job, I would pick this one. He's done jobs for us in Boone County, Berlin, it's just good work. It's a family-owned company. We've had some pickups at the contractor, the primary, to say the least. And I feel confident saying that we won't have any with this contract. We wholeheartedly recommend this contractor, Braillemeyer. They're out of Cincinnati. They do great work. I talked to Ms. Hoover. Of course, she's happy that it came in her budget.
He always is.
Of course, we'll have to revise the BG one. We'll do that at the board meeting in a couple of weeks. Because the bid opening just this morning, she didn't have time to get all the bonding and things together with Ross Sinclair. But I talked to the contractor who's the parent low, and he plans to start very soon. So we should see some movement here very soon. We're going to start the asbestos abatement on Monday, and as soon as that's done, we'll be ready for the demo and to get going. So, questions, sure.
Yeah, so the 1.295 million, what is that?
Was the scope of the project, so that's demolishing the current structure. Basically, probably 95% of the pavement on that side is going to go. We're putting in new sewer and water for the potential phase two buildings. So we're doing the best we can to not have to tear up what we're putting in now. That does the footings for the new bleachers, does the fencing. It ties, it brings fiber optic from the high school down, so we have internet. And then that also includes the tow line contract that we approved previously for the bleachers themselves.
But that was that's the other amount of 1.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, yes, the 2.496 is the total for the two contracts.
So this is demo plus a little bit of infrastructure.
Yes.
I wanted to bring this, I didn't realize this was gonna happen. I saw it on the agenda. I had spoken with the city back a few weeks ago, and they were interested in potentially, they essentially said, we have public works, we have the ability to do demolition, we have the ability to carry things away, and it might be cheaper, essentially. I haven't further developed that, but I don't know.
So there's two things. We can go ahead and approve this tonight, and then we could deduct the demo as a change order. I got wind of this potentially coming forward, and I talked to the contractor, and his demo number is about 180,000. So we could back that out. I guess there are two concerns I have with the city doing that. Number one, that's a pretty robust concrete structure, and do they have the ability to do it? I'm not trying to step on their toes, but just, the contractor's a professional demolition contractor, city says who would be doing it. And I just don't want, guys that normally mow the grass, going over there with equipment and things. Number two, my other concern is we don't have any recourse over the city. So if this takes 6 months for them to get to,
For 180,000 might be.
yeah, it's certainly up to you all.
I want to really want to have football at some point next year. And I think it's deserved, and I don't want to roll the dice on just taking a chance on whether they can get it done or not. And he was mentioning, that having some contractual agreements through, the contractor makes me feel a lot better that we would meet timeline. Cause I
So,
don't know how it's gonna come across, come late in the year, if we agree to go this route. It can make both of us, city and school, look bad if we're not.
and when you say you talk to the city,
Talk to Tom Fromm,
okay,
city manager.
and right, and if this was something that they were really interested in, why didn't they put up a formal proposal and present it to the board?
I wrote down to the Sweet 16 basketball game with Tom, and we were just having a general discussion, and he said, he floated the idea of helping out. That was really the gist of our
Right.
conversation.
And
So
so,
I have not followed back up with it,
Right.
he followed back up with me. I saw this on the agenda yesterday, and I just wanted to bring it to the board's attention that that's possible.
so if we delay this vote by 2 weeks, how would that impact?
He was saying we don't need to delay it.
You don't have to delay the vote. We can do a change order to remove the $180,000 toward the demolition.
If the city presents us with a proposal that we are confident that they can achieve the goal and they have the equipment and the capacity to do the work.
Yes,
Okay.
that's a tall task, in
It
my
is.
opinion, but yes, if they can meet that, it is possible to do that. But again, I would want all of us to be extremely confident in it getting done to meet our timeline so that we can have football.
Well, that would be to me, this, we can approve this, and then you can let Tom know if they're interested in doing the work, then they need to get with Dennis, and then it needs to come back to the board, with the proper paperwork, so you can meet with the city, tell them what they need to do, what's required, according to KDE, when you're working on school property. Okay, and then we go from there. Sound good?
Keep in mind, please, that the asbestos removal starts on Monday, that's the 17th. I am hoping, just knowing the amount of asbestos, the small amount of asbestos that's in there, that the abatement will be, it could be done within a few days. And we would like is to turn over
Sooner the better, I agree.
Yeah, so, I mean, really, we need a strong commitment and convincing in in about a week at the most.
I'll call him today.
Mrs. Maloney, you bring up a good point as well, with maybe we should run some things by KDE.
That's right, because most contractors and things,
Yes.
we only use the
property.
Yes.
That's gonna get kind of near.
Yes, and then, don't have to worry about the
Bonds
wage factor. Yeah.
And we appreciate the city's goodwill and desire to help us, but a lot of times they don't know the difference between city property and school property. And so we just need to make sure that everything lines up according to,
bond money
and all that. Okay?
I think we just need to go ahead and approve it tonight.
No, we're gonna approve it tonight, but if you meet with the city and Tom and them can get us the information within a week, we can always have a special meeting to approve any changes.
I would still ask of the city those guaranteed date, put it in the contract of the city, those guaranteed dates,
Of course.
because
That's right.
that's.
Right, that's part of the conversation,
Yeah, absolutely.
the deadlines. Yes,
So when I went to the stadium, I haven't seen it since it started. So the concrete is what you're working on in the bleachers and not the locker room, or all of that is,
That entire structure that you see above ground will be gone.
okay.
Yes. And so part of the work that's going to be taking place is basically reworking all of the ground, all of that existing concrete for the most part is going to be coming up. We're going to be adding new underground sewage lines and such. But part of the design of the bleachers themselves is putting in the footings down deep into the ground where the aluminum structure is going to be standing on top of that.
But this is just the outside, had nothing, I went in one of the locker rooms, so had nothing to do with the inside, just the bleachers and all that stuff.
This is the demolition of all of that. So just imagine standing there on the 50-yard line looking over, there won't be anything there except for the white wall behind it and the house is up on the hill.
Okay, that's gonna be good. Well, let's see what it was before and after. Thank you.
Okay,
I have one question.
Mhm.
What's the athletic director's involvement in this, if at all?
I answered it in terms of, he's been in your meetings, he's been a part of, the discussion, part of the police.
That's the reason why I asked.
Part of the bleacher design, part of the press box design, and just, kept in the loop in terms of, what the different faces are gonna, bring for us. So he's been informed and he's had opportunities in meetings to talk about this.
Well, thank you for coming.
this does fall under your wheelhouse, right?
Sure.
Right, right. Okay, all righty, and then the next one is the, recommendation to choose KDE, as our turnaround training and support team for the high school. Any questions or discussion on this item? Are we okay with the recommendation? All righty. Without further discussion, I need a motion to approve consent agenda items 1 and 2.
So moved.
It's been moved in second, all in favor?
Aye.
All righty.
Hour and a half.
I know. Well, can I get a motion to adjourn? It's been moved in second, all in favor? Aye. All right, it's 6:30. Normally, we just started.
I know.
Yeah.